friends, it's Jenny, and I am going to be making something. This was a previous idea. I'm going to be moving some things around. But I've had a couple of different ideas with this. But I think I've finally settled on what I want to do. And I am going to swap out some of these things. Bead Box Bargains, just a little while ago, had these little bundles. They were mini bundles, like there was the strand bundle, and I've got some of the strands in here, as well as Spooky Spider. So it was these spooky little mini bundles that you could get. And I got them because I loved them a lot. And I'm gonna maybe do those up here instead. Just to kind of lighten that strand. And do these here. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I'll play with it on the strand when we do it. But, sorry, distracted moving my beads. They got these things. And so I have been playing around with a couple of ideas. My first idea was way too grand for what I was able to pull off. Not that that's like knocking my abilities, but just seriously, it was too much for me. And so, or I didn't have the right materials. So a combination of maybe this isn't exactly the best idea and me trying to figure out, okay, then what is? And so I scrapped that idea and just deleted that video. I don't do that very often, but I did. And so then I was like, okay, well, maybe instead of that, I'll do like a 3-strand necklace with this spooky bundle and these beads and these beads and these beads were the strand bundle, which is actually still available. So the spider bundle isn't, but if you like these crystals or these crystals or this strand of amethyst, that bundle, last I looked, is still available on the Bead Box Bargains website. So there'll be a link to that below. But then the rest of these things are from the Spooky Spiders bundle. And I'll just play with it on the strand and figure out what I like. But my original idea was to take this and string like 3 rows with interweaving exposed beading wire that looked like spider web, like this kind of shimmery, and it didn't work well together. It didn't drape, the beads didn't go where they're supposed to go, and it was a cute idea, but it just an abject failure. So I went back to the drawing board and I decided I would keep some of what I had already decided on, but go a different direction. So instead, I'm going to string on some satin silver beading wire, which this is a 49 strand. The other one I had been trying to work with is beautiful, but it is a 19 strand. So it kinks really easy, and I definitely ran into trouble with that. But I'm going to use this satin silver, which I think is really pretty and goes with what we have going on here. And I'm going to do 3 strands. And then here's where the webby bit comes in. I'm going to take some of this chain that came in the subscription box. It's the stainless steel cable chain. And I'm going to cut probably like 2-inch sections of it and then string them, diagonally across between the different strands so that you get that web-like look without me trying to make that be the structure of the necklace itself. So that's the plan, and I'm planning on taking the 3 strands and putting them here through a bead cap and using an eye pin to do that. So the strands that I do will loop onto here, and then from there I'll go ahead and have a little bit of a bead decorative here, do another loop, and then finish with more of the chain. So that's my plan. Let's go over tools real quick. I have flush cutters to use with my beading wire and other things that I will use. I've got my pliers set. because I am going to be making some loops and doing a little bit of wire working, as well as opening and closing jump rings when I do my clasp. And I've got my magical crimper because I am stringing on beading wire, which will then need to be crimped. And for that, I have my Soft Flex 2x2 crimp tubes. So when we get to that, I'll go over it. But this is where we're going to play a little bit. So I'm going to move some of this stuff up off of my mat, and we're going to work one strand at a time. And I'm pulling the beads down that match what I'm working with. I have these bead caps, these filigree bead caps that I absolutely loved from this bundle because they're filigree and you can really see a lot of the stone underneath it. And I thought they would be fun to use here as well as in a couple of other places, including earrings. I have a plan for earrings too. Now, I am going to have to pause this video at some point soon because I am going to be picking my husband up from the airport. And so I'm going to get a little bit of this filmed now, and then we'll go from there. Because I need to get a start on this. So I might have to pause and come back. You guys won't notice that time you don't have to wait for me. But just so you know, there is going to be a moment when I pause. That's what I'm doing. Nothing's wrong, but I'll just come back when I'm done. So that'll be about half an hour from now. So I am going to be using this web pendant that has I think this was an obsidian. Yeah, this was an obsidian stone in it. I am going to be using that as my focal. These cool lampwork beads that have glow in the dark, there's 4 of them. I'm using 2 in the necklace and 2 in earrings. So I am saving some of those for earrings. I do have more of all of these beads. I think I've got more of all of them. I have more of a lot of them, but you can see I've really decimated my thing right now. So if I need some more of these or these to do the pattern, I can, but I don't expect to have this be a long section here. I'm probably going to be going for this whole area to be just like right around the neck. So like the shortest strand is probably only going to be about 4 or 5 inches. And then they'll be progressively longer to do this one. So I don't expect to take up a lot of space. I also have 2 different kinds of seed beads that I'm considering using in this design. This one I think is really nice and it plays well with the oranges, especially these orange crystals here. And it adds just a nice glow. I've used these a lot lately, but that's not bad because I have a lot of these and I like them. I also have these gray silver lined seed beads. They're very similar to these larger Toho beads that I used earlier, so I might use a combination of these. So these are going to read more dark and gray, but have that glint of silver. I'll use that so that it makes the strands less heavy physically, but also less heavy visually, because this is going to be a lot of beads right on like the exposed part of your chest if you're wearing like a V-neck shirt or a low scoop. And so I want to be able to have some, I don't want that to feel or look too heavy. And I am planning on using this link. So on that shortest strand, I'm actually going to have 2 separate segments so that they connect with this link. Oh, that's not the top strand. That's not the shortest one. That's the one in the middle. That's the one in the middle because my spider has to be in the middle of the web, right? That's the idea. That's the idea. Okay. So yeah, that's roughly what I have in mind. The main beads that I'm using on this first strand are some of these ice obsidian, those lampwork beads, these star cut, I don't remember what these were called. I don't have the list with me, but these star cut orange ones, they're so pretty. These were from the Strand bundle and are still available. I just don't remember what stone they are. And then some of these faceted, I think these are onyx. So I am going to start with the middle, as I often do, and I am going to just pinch this to make sure that it's closed really good. I am going to go ahead and use this bail, just because I don't want to mess with doing a new one. I'm just tightening it because it did look like it was kind of coming away a little bit at the back. So I'm just tightening it. And this bail is going to fit over my seed beads pretty easily. I'm going to do like 3 seed beads. Let's do the these 8/0 ones here. Just getting 3 seed beads that can rest on top of, and it's going to look wonky until we actually like finish and crimp that strand. But the idea is that they'll sit here and be a place where that bail can rest without making the seeds beside it pop up all wonky. But I only want a few of them there, so I'm going to do like this. And this is where I need to probably spill out some of these other seed beads and start deciding what I want to use. I am kind of leaning towards, I was thinking about doing the other ones to add a little bit of glow, but I think I'm going to lean into the silver and glimmer that we get so that it might look a little bit more like, you know, glistening, because this doesn't have a lot of shine to it, this gray wire, but the silver poking through is going to give it a little bit more of that. This could be a web kind of pattern. So maybe I do an 8/0 and then these little guys, they're like delicas. So they're very small. I'm thinking like maybe a group of 3 would be nice for that. And then I want to do an ice obsidian, but this is where I'm going to use some of these bead caps because I really like the way that this looks. These are large bead caps, but because they have so many little openings, they are just beautiful on that stone. And I like that a lot. So I am going to do that. Oh, except I probably want to add another one of these 8/0s. So, yeah. And then, and you'll hear my dog clicking in the hallway. That is because she has been waiting for Dad to come home for 3 days, and she doesn't understand that he's not coming home yet. But now he actually is going to be coming home. She's just over there lurking near the garage so that she can be there to greet him. All right, and then I'm going to use this bead cap again, but this time with the lampwork bead. So this is how this looks on the lampwork bead. All that glow-in-the-dark glittery goodness is going to be right there. And I may not actually use a whole lot of these other beads because, like I said, I'm not going for a very long segment. Each of these is going to be fairly short because they're all going to be sharing some space. So it's possible that I won't even use these onyx. These are the beads I want to make sure I have. And I am liking, it's hard to see because of the shadow. Give me just a second. I'll move it so that you can see the space between it. But let me get these. I'll lift it up so you can see. Okay. All right. So this is what we're looking at for a pattern. So it's basically, I'm hoping that this eventually gives web without actually me trying to make it look like an actual web. And these sections where I just have these little delicas are going to be a great place for me to attach those segments of chain with small jump rings that will fit over the seed beads, so that I can kind of drape that chain in between the lines. That's how I'm hoping to make this web like. If that part of this design doesn't work out, we'll just remove them and carry on with our fun selves. But I think I might be nearing the end of this segment. I'm putting on another one of these orange beads like I have near the focal, because this right here is, get my measuring tape out. It's about 3.5 inches. So if I do the same little seed bead pattern to end it, then that could be the end of this one. So I'm going to go ahead and put this on, and then I'm going to use a bead stopper to hold the pattern. So if I want to change anything, I can come back and change it. And I can, just using one of these guys, because this I think is going to be nice hanging down with the two other strands. I don't think I want to go much longer than that for the bottom strand, but it does give me the really fun focal length without, like I said, a lot of weight. So if this is going to be about how long I want that strand to be, I'm going to go ahead and cut the other side of this. Yeah, just going to do it. Then the other strands will each get a little bit shorter because they won't need to go as far to reach our place of crimping. Okay, so if this is where that goes, we're gonna have another orange one here, kind of color matching with this one a little bit. Move this out of the way. Okay. And more of this ice obsidian, which I think is really cool. It's got kind of like silver little striations through it. It's pretty. I don't know if you see that kind of sheen that you get, silvery sheen that you get from it, because it's the ice version. I think it's pretty. And yes, I am partially covering it with bead caps, but they're very pretty bead caps, and they give spider. I can see why Lauren included these. They definitely fit. So, getting my seed beads again. And then doing our lamp work with glow-in-the-dark bits. And I'm not actually going to crimp this one until I finish designing the other two strands as well, so that if I need to adjust the length on things, I can see it and do it and not feel like I've messed it up. Because sometimes I feel like I mess it up and then I beat myself up, and that's not productive. And yes, I know I'm using a lot of these bead caps here at the bottom, but I want this to be what draws the eye. Okay, and then we'll get one of these orange star cut guys. And then that same repeat of seed beads. And I might use different orders of seed beads. I'm not necessarily going to use this repeat on all the strands. I might change that. I might even change which seed beads I'm using. But for this strand, this feels right. Move these beads out of the way that I ended up not using. See, I got out way more beads than I needed. But this is what we've got for this bottom strand. Yeah, I like those caps. They just add drama, and I'm loving the drama they add. All right, so that is the first strand. I'm gonna go ahead and pick it up and set it back here. And let's get our wire out and work on the top strand, maybe. Well, I do need to have this as a reference because I do need them to graduate in size. So this is, I'm gonna keep it kind of at the bottom of my mat here, so it's possibly less distracting, but I do need it to get an idea of what size I need. So if I do, let's look at the middle strand. We're gonna look at the middle strand, which I was gonna use the amethyst. I wanted to use the amethyst with this one, the smaller links, the smaller sections, and probably these dragon's vein agate. But I wanted to break up the orange. I originally had this as the top strand, but I wanted to break up the orange. Plus, I like the idea of having our spider in the middle. So let me open up this strand of amethyst, and I'm probably going to pick through and get our more vibrant or more deeply colored ones, because there is a lot of variation in this strand, which is gorgeous and fun. But I want the stuff that's going to read as, oh yeah, that's purple. Definitely picking and choosing from this strand. But I can because there's so much great variation in it. Like, I don't know how many I need, but I like these. They're little rondelles, little faceted rondelles. That's a pretty good, well, that's dark. I want, this one has smaller beads, so the seed beads become a little bit unnecessary. Maybe because I don't have any orange in this strand, maybe I will go ahead and use some of these to add that little bit of glow. Yes. Yes, maybe. Okay, so I've got the dragon's vein agate. I want this to hang here. If this is going to be here, then I want this to come up and meet here. So I'm looking at a strung length on each side of this link of about 3 inches. About, give or take. That's what I'm looking at. About 3 inches on either side of this link. So let's see what a 3-inch pattern looks like. Let's see. And maybe I use a combination of the silver and the yellow. Let's see how that looks. Just to see if we can get a little bit of color in here aside from the purple. Like, it's not going to stand out much. It's just going to be one at a time, but it'll be this little hint of a glow if we do that. Question is, do we go straight into the dragon's vein? Maybe I get a little bit more of a glow. Let me try this. Try to get just a couple on there in a row. And then the amethyst. Oops. Seed bead, and then the amethyst. I'm trying to avoid abrupt changes in size. I've got pretty abrupt stuff here, but this one I want to flow just a little bit differently. So this is one of the Dragon's Vein agate that's fairly clear. It has a little bit of that smokiness to it. And then amethyst. Because there's going to be a little bit of room because I will be crimping on either side of this as well. So I think I can do at least one more of that pattern. And I'm going to do one of the darker Dragon's Vein. I don't know placement wise like how I want to attach it to that little guy or not. But the question is this enough? Or do I need a little bit more? Let's see how long this is. I said I need about 3 inches of strung length. And that is 2 1/4. Good, because I want more of this. Okay. I am liking it with that kind of little bit of a golden glow on these seed beads. I'll bring this up where you can see it. Actually put it against my dish so you can see it a little bit better. See how it gets that little bit of a glow? Just a bit. I like that. Okay, now what I need to check is to make sure that this is not too long. Like, is that going to make it hang too close to the other? And I think it is. So I can do one of two things. I can keep this pattern and lengthen my bottom strand by just a little bit, or I can shorten this by one of the repeats. Maybe I have the stone combination connect directly. That feels a little bit better. And I'm just holding it against, I've got my link here, sorry, covering it with my thumb. So if I take these seed beads away and I just do this, do I need to also take these guys away? That's going to be better. So what I think is a better fit is if I take these seed beads away on this side and these seed beads away on this side, so that we've just got the 2 gemstone, or the 3 gemstone repeats with just the spacers in between, just in between, not on the edges. I think is a better length for that one. Let's see how that goes. So I'm going to take this off. And I do have to make a decision. I don't know if I have enough bead stoppers. I do have 2 more bead stoppers. Okay. Because I need a total of 8 bead stoppers if this is what I'm doing. So I'm making this one a bead stopper. I'll do this for the other section. Again, so that I'm going to crimp when I'm getting ready to finish all these things. I'm just going to go ahead and snip this because this is basically the length that I want. I've got a tiny bit of extra in case I want to make a change. And I'm taking off these 4 seed beads. Those are 3 of the yellow ones and a an 8/0, and I'm doing a bead stopper on the other side. And then I'm going to recreate this section. Oh, come on. So I'm going to duplicate this section because I will need 2 of those. So that is going to be pretty easy because I just figured out what I want, and so it's just a matter of putting it together. And I'll try to hit that same balance of a fairly clear one, a middle one, and a darker one. So of the Dragon's Vein agate, because we do have a lot of those to choose from. And a clearer one. Yeah, I think this one is so dark you almost can't see anything. But that's actually a good match for that one. There we go. Okay. It doesn't have to be an exact match, but this way I can balance it if I want to, because there's so much variety in those. And because this is a 3-strand necklace, this is probably going to be a longer video. If it exceeds that hour and we don't have automatic translation for our international friends, I do apologize. I do want to show the whole process as much as possible. And I did the darkest one in the middle. It's the only thing I'm really paying attention to is the rough order. The darkest one is in the middle on the other side, so doing that again here. And then our little seed bead pattern. And then one more repeat of the stones. Yes. Oh, but stopping there. So that's that same little section. Repeat it again. Get this guy. And snip and clamp this guy as well. Okay. All right. And then for our top strand, the top strand needs to be shorter, but it's not as finicky as this middle one. So we've got our bottom strand. It's hard to see everything, but we've got our bottom strand here. And then we've got our slightly shorter segments that we are adding to this link here. So then our next section needs to be shorter yet so that it drapes above this. So when it's all scooched up together, it's going to have nice form. And so for this one, we don't necessarily have a focal. These two have focals. The other one is just going to be a bead pattern. So let me move the amethyst out of the way. I'm not using the amethyst here. I'm going to move the Dragon's Vein agate as well. I'm keeping my seed beads out because I don't know yet which ones, if any, I will be using. I will need to get out more of the 8/0s if I do decide to use them, because I've only got a few. Well, I might only need a few. Okay, all right. Get my bead caps out of the way. Okay, so this one, I wanted to use a combination of these pale, almost champagne colored. They're called orange, but they're more peachy to me. They're really pretty. And these slightly more kind of decaying look crystals. So these ones came in the Spooky Spider bundle. These ones came in the Strand bundle, which is still available. where it's a matte jet that has, I want to say, iris on them. And so it kind of, to me, looks a little bit rotten. And I think we're going to switch back to silver seed beads to separate these. So I think what I want to do, because we're not going to have a focal area, is I want to figure out how long I want these to be. So if this is hanging out here and this is hanging out in the space in between, right? So then this one would hang out. And if we're going to cut length to do, so we want a beaded length that's about this long. Holding my fingers separate. Okay, so from here to here, here to the end of the wire, beaded length is going to be about 4 inches. 4 inches might be a little bit short, 4 and a touch more. That puts it at 4.5. So if I want a beaded length of 4.5 inches, about what remains of this wire right here, 4.5 inches, that's what we're going to go for. So I think, like these other ones, I want to start with one of these 8/0s, and I am going to try to have it be a repeating pattern. So you know what, scrap that. I'm not going to start with the 8/0. I'm going to do half of it. So if I'm going for 2.5 inches or 4.5 inches, this needs to be 2.25. So I am putting this on. I'm not going to have nearly as much space in between my beads, because I do want at least one of these crystals to be in fact, maybe we don't use the 8/0s. Maybe we just use one little delica in between each. I want to see how that looks compared to the rest. I think it's going to put the beads too close, but I want to see it. Because I'm looking at 2.25 inches from the center, and I want at least one of these orange crystals, because they are the larger, to be in the center of that strand. So I'm putting a few of these on so I can get an idea how I like it. These are the little delicas. They might not actually be delicas. They might be like the Toho equivalent. But they're little cylinder seed beads. Okay. Let's see. And yes, I know I've got a lot going on my mat right now. So sorry. Trying to decide if I like this visually, or if I want to space them out more by doing. Okay, so without undoing what I've done, I'm going to change the pattern, and I'm going to see which section I like better. So now I'm putting on 3 of the little seed beads, because that's what we've been doing elsewhere, and I want to see which one I like better. And that's what we're going to do for the entire length. Oh gosh, I think I am going to like it better. It kind of mirrors back to that bottom one where it is a more distinct drop in size when you're jumping between these and having the longer sections of the just seed beads. Also, it is going to give us more space for attaching those lengths of chain that I was talking about. Okay, so I've got 2 halves. And you can't give me feedback. This is not a live, but I'm gonna switch over to this section. I think it fits the feel of this necklace better. Like if you set this between these, it feels like it's more part of the whole. So I'm going to keep that. So now this is me being weird. Okay. I know I'm gonna end up taking those off, but I've already strung these and I like the way these look. So rather than unstring them to get back to where I was or to redo what I've already got, this is now gonna be this side of the necklace. And then when I snip the other side to add the beads, then I'll have what I need. All right, I think this. And 3 of these. Let's see what that length is. Which is going to be a total of 7 of the orange crystals. No, 5 of the orange crystals and 6 of the, I keep calling them decaying ones. I don't know what to call it other than that. Oh, well, that's my seed beads. And yeah, that is right at the 2 1/4 that I thought that we might need for that side. So let me clamp this. I should be leaving right now to go pick up my husband from the airport, but I'm going to finish this strand. And then when I come back, then it's a matter of making sure that everything is how I want, that it will hang the way I want, and then crimping, attaching everything, and checking to see if my idea with the segments of chain is going to work or not. So what I need is from this bead over, I just need to duplicate this length because this is going to be my center bead right here. I need to duplicate that length so that I have room to string and crimp. And then I'm taking off these beads that I don't want in this order that I strung originally. And now I'm going to string the other half. So I'm adding 2 seed beads here so that we're up to the 3 on the other side of that one. A dark crystal. Maybe I should just call it my dark crystal instead of a decaying. Oh, I didn't think about that. Is this bead eating those? No. Because these are such small seed beads, it looked like they were starting to get stuck in the orange guys. So, an orange guy. And then more of these. I'm glad I'm not using the larger seed beads in this pattern because it needed to be a smaller segment of that kind of a pattern, but it needed to be in the same family as that pattern. So that is good. That is good. So I've got these, another orange, 3 more of these, a dark one. And how many of you, when I started talking about dark crystal, thought about Jim Henson's dark crystal? Because that's what I thought about. When I started talking about it, I was like, I'll just call these my dark crystal. Okay. So this is that pattern repeated that puts this orange one right in the center. But it's still going to be, I think, a fairly delicate top strand for this necklace. So I am going to go and pause, and I will be back. Let me get this out of the way. I will be back with you to check to see what changes, if any, I need to make this work. Right now, it's just a crazy mess, but if you ignore the bead stoppers, this is potentially my spider necklace. Yeah, that's potentially my spider necklace. About like that. So that's roughly how it's going to sit. Of course, these are going to be a lot closer when the clamps are out of the way and I'm crimping and stuff. So that's why I need to make sure that this is what I want. But so far, I'm liking this. So I will return to you shortly. Okay, friends, I am back. You might have noticed a little bit of tidying has happened here as I prepare to move on to this next step. My husband is safely home from his trip. My dog is no longer haunting the garage door. Um, they're both happily sleeping right now. And I have a project to finish. So let's get moving on to the next step. I went ahead and strung these in the first part of this video just a moment ago for all of you. While I was away, I went ahead and tidied a little bit. I also cut several sections of chain. These are about 1.5 inches, give or take a link or two. I'm not super precise on this because they're just going to be draping anyway when I use them. I think this is about the size that I want. If I start liking the way it looks and I want some longer lengths, I have more chain. The box came with a whole meter of chain, which is 3 feet, and I'm definitely gonna have plenty to use with that. I also got out my crimps so that we can go ahead and start crimping these lines. And I decided that I'm gonna start actually with this middle one. I want to get them crimped to the length because that's going to give me a more realistic idea of that length when I'm comparing on these other ones. And these other ones I can adjust as needed, make them either shorter or longer to kind of fit. But I feel like this middle one that I'm going to be using that has the amethyst and the dragon's vein agate really needs to be set. It needs to be settled. So I'm taking my link and I'm taking my crimp off one side. I think I'm going to do the other side. So my clearer ones are closer to the focal, or not the focal, the connection point where I'm connecting all the strands. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to demonstrate how to use the magical crimper and talk you through it. I'm going to be making 8 crimps. I'm not going to describe it every time that I do it, but it is time to start crimping. So what I'm doing on this one is I am putting the crimp tube on the wire, attaching the link, and then going back through the wire or back through the crimp tube. Since I haven't crimped this other end, I have room so I can crimp near the end of the wire rather than right up against the beads. I'll show you how I crimp up against beads a little bit later, but for now, this is basically my first crimp. And the magical crimpers are meant to be used with 0.018 to 0.019 beading wire. This medium soft flex is 0.019. I'm using a soft flex 2x2 crimp tube. It only works with 2x2 crimp tubes, not crimp beads or other types of things or other sizes. It does need to be that 2mm crimp tube. It's really important that when you choose your crimp tube, you get one that has no seam and has a decently thick wall, a consistent wall. I've seen pictures of other brands of crimps where, you know, one of them's wearing thin over here or has a little bit of extra. It's just, you know, this inconsistency is going to make it not work very well. So you're going to take that crimp and you're going to center it inside this spherical concavity there. You can see it there on that side of the plier, and then it's also on the other opposite side. Because what we're doing is we're taking all that stuff, whether it's the crimp tube or the wire that's inside it, and compressing it into that little sphere. So the first time you squeeze it, it's going to pinch down those 4 corners. Difficult to see, I know. There we go. And it's going to look a little bit like a ravioli. That's starting to crimp, starting to clamp down on everything. I'm going to turn this the other way so you can see it without the link there. Then you're going to rotate that crimp tube so it's straight up and down inside the concavity. Again, make sure that it is centered. It's 90 degrees from where you just were. And then after you have those two, then you just rotate it around, pressing at different positions. That one felt funny. I do have it on, if it mangled this close to a focal area, I would redo the crimp, but it looks like it's fine. But basically you keep pressing, make sure you keep it centered until you don't feel any resistance anymore. And then you can snip. I really don't think, typically seed beads won't go over those, and I don't know that I want to if it does. Oh, it did. I might actually do that this time. I don't like to feed it back through because I've had too many that worked themselves loose. Not that the crimp became loose, but that the pokey bit worked itself loose and needed to be snipped anyway. I'm just going to snip it because it doesn't want to fit through the amethyst that's next to it. So why bother putting it through the seed bead? So instead, I'm just taking my flesh cutters right up to it and snipping it off. And that's a nice little ball of crimp that just looks like a silver bead right next to our focal. In this case, a focal link. Okay. And now I'm going to do the same with this side because, again, the reason that I'm doing this one is so I can get a much better idea of the actual length and space that this is taking once this crimp is done. Because the crimp tube itself, the loop that attaches it, those all take up space, and I wanted to make sure that I was accounting for that space correctly when I'm working on the rest of this. So I am putting the other side of that link through, and I'm just repeating what I just did before. So again, this time I am not going to describe everything as I do it. I'm making sure that my loop matches what I did on the other side, that they're very similar in size. And then I am going to crimp this just like I did the other one. The one thing that I'm doing differently is instead of taking it out and showing you that ravioli, I'm just rotating it that 90 degrees. It's easier for me to keep it centered because it's important that you start centered, but it's also important that you continue centered. And I found when I was learning that that was easier for me to do if I just open the pliers a little bit and rotate and not pull it back out, because then I'm not having to recenter it every time. So that was helpful for me. All right. Okay. All right. And this one I've decided I'm not adding anything to, so I am going to go ahead and crimp the other sides. I just need to make sure that they're not twisting funny and twisting that link. I feel like it's twisting the link. Why is it twisting the link? Okay. That's better. Okay. It's fine. It's fine. Everything is fine. Okay, it's twisting the link for some reason, but I think once I don't have these bead stoppers trying to hold the strand in a specific position, it will work better. And then also I'll just make sure that that's nice and smooth when I'm doing the other. It does want to flip forward a little bit, our little spider, but I think when it's worn against the body, it won't be doing that quite so much. Just trying to see what it's wanting to do. That was the one fiddly bit I wasn't quite sure about, was this link. And I'm sure there's going to be other things that are going to be fiddly, but okay. So I told you that I would show you when I do my crimp, when I'm crimping up against a bead. That's where I'm going to be doing here. So this middle one is the length that I want it. I'll adjust the ones above it and below it rather than this one. This one's going to be like the benchmark. So I'm just going to feed this back through. I'm making a loop. It is going to be a small loop because I'm going to be attaching it along with the other 3 strands to the bottom of an eye pin, and then hiding that eye pin underneath this cap. So it needs to be a small loop so that none of that is seen. You might see a little bit of the beads actually go up inside. So just a little bit. All right. So the thing that I do differently when I am crimping the other side is I do want to hold the crimp tube as close to the bead as I can, but I don't want it too close because I don't want to crunch that seed bead when I get to it. So I'm just placing my thumbnail between the crimp tube and the seed bead so that when I'm tugging and making the space, it's, here we go. It's giving me enough room that I can have clearance with the pliers when I'm making that crimp. So right here, I'm clear of that bead, but it's otherwise snugged pretty close up against it. There we go. These beads or these crimps don't have to look as pretty. I like my crimps to look pretty, but these ones are going to be hidden from view. So unlike those ones that were right at the front by the spider, if this one gets a little bit wrinkled, it's not so bad, but it looks fine to me. Okay, so that is one side of that. Let's do the other side of this, and this way we'll have one of our strands will be complete. And then we can really adjust the other ones to fit nicely with it. I think I'm going to do the one that goes above it next, and then the one that goes the bottom last, because that's the one where we have a little bit more play in what we can do. Actually, both of them are very adjustable, but that's one that we're going to want to make sure it falls nicely. And I'm not worrying about that chain that I'm adding because none of that is structural. If it changes the way any of this is draping or falling, then that chain is too tight and I'll want to loosen it or do a longer chain. Those are just going to be decorative, the ones that we add later for the web appearance. Some strands of spider silk is what we're trying to mimic with those chains. And again, if I hate them, I'll take them off. I think this will be a pretty necklace with or without them, but I want to play, and that's one of the things that I do when I make jewelry and I design. I try to remind myself that I'm here to play with beads, that I'm experimenting, that I'm having fun, that I'm, sometimes I come in with an idea and it works, and sometimes I come in with an idea and it doesn't. But every one of those ideas that I try is an opportunity. Oh, that's so pretty. Okay, I love this strand. I think that turned out perfect. And I'm really, really happy about that. Okay, let's do this guy next. So if this was hanging here above it, this is too short. So I'm going to lengthen because that's just really tight. If they were connecting to the same place, see how big that gap is? And this is almost a straight line. I might actually need more beading wire if I can't get this the way I want it. I do have a little bit of slack, so I'm going to see about adding a little bit more. Let's get these out. Let's get my seed beads back out. They look like my crimp tubes, so I put them away in case I didn't need them. But this is why I wanted to get this one crimped, because it's so much easier without these bead stoppers in the way to see what that length actually is. And I want this to fit a little bit more like this, which means I need to add a rondelle and 3 seed beads, probably, or at least a rondelle to each side. Let's start with that, because that rondelle actually takes a fair amount of space. These are 4x6 rondelles, so that's 4 millimeters that just added to that side, and then another 4 millimeters to this side, because this is what would be next in the pattern. But these beads won't fit inside that cap, and it's not quite enough anyway. I'm going to add, let's try for 2 seed beads, because I need room to crimp and the crimp itself. I'm going to try 2 seed beads on each side, before we get to the crimp. And the other side is unstopped, so I have to be very careful when I do this. This is the fine tuning that I wanted to do without the bead stoppers in the way. Because I want the one above it to be shorter, but not so much shorter that we've got weird drape happening. Okay, that's probably just about right. Okay, I'm going to put a stopper on this side. And then I'm going to crimp this side. And that crimp tube, once it's used, is just going to look like that third silver seed bead. So that will be just fine. Now, I don't have as much room to crimp here. I usually like to have a little bit more room, but I can still do it. But I'm just going to do this very similar sized loop as the other. And right here I have room because I haven't crimped the other side yet. So when I crimp this one, that's going to give me a little bit more room for the other side, which is good because that side is really short on space for wire. And sometimes it's a couple of crimps, sometimes it's more. As long as it's centered, you can't do any damage, making sure that it's crimped from every angle, every rotation. Okay. And then we scoot these beads down, and that should give us, yep, just enough room to awkwardly try to crimp. I like having a little bit more of a tail when I'm crimping. And these tiny seed beads are going to be very easy to I need it just a little bit more. They're going to be very easy to crunch, so making sure that I'm clear of those seed beads is important. Okay. Get this. Okay. Then you line up these two next to each other, and you can see that that top one is just a little bit shorter than the next one down. So when they're actually connected to the same point, we're going to get a little bit more like this, which is what I'm looking for, because they're going to be connected to the same point at that spot. Okay, so then we need to decide if we need to add anything to this bottom one. This bottom one left us with a seed bead pattern, which is good because that will fit up inside. It's a pretty domed thing, but these are large beads that I'm dealing with here. So I am going to go ahead and try to pull this up. Like if it was connected with, that's probably really good, actually. I worry that it would be crowding this one in the middle, but it doesn't look like it's going to. because we're going to have a loop and a crimp on either of those as well. So it might be just a touch down. It is harder to estimate, but I think that that's nice. Yeah, I think that that's nice. So I'm not going to add anything to the bottom strand. I am just going to go ahead and crimp. I'm going to get a crimp tube on here, get it crimped, scoot everything down, and do the other crimp. So this is our 7th out of 8 crimps for this project, which is just fine. Totally fine. It's what I planned when I was doing a lot. And like I said, even if my little web idea with the chain looks weird and I take it off, because I might feel like it clutters that space, because this is not really like a big amount of space, but I want to see what it looks like, kind of crisscrossing some of those chains, letting them drape a little, because if I don't like them, I'll just take them off. There is nothing wrong with that. Scoot that down. Yay. Okay, moving all the bead buddies away, bead stoppers, because I don't need them anymore. I am putting my last crimp on. That's why I like to have a longer tail. It's so much easier to just tug everything right where you want it. So there's nothing wrong with having a little bit of scrap wire. All right. Come on. It's not rotating. There we go. There's also no need to rush your crimps. It's worth it to take some time to make sure that your positioning is how you want it, and that you've given it all those little squishy hugs that it needs. It just needs to be hugged. All right. That's not too bad. That's the longest bit of scrap wire that I have for this project, and that's okay. All right. All of my little loops are lined up. Yeah, I like the spacing of those strands. I really, really do. I really, really do. Okay, so this is where we work on assembling it all together. So the first thing that I'm doing is I'm opening this eye-ring, and I'm putting my lower strand first, my middle strand, and my top strand. And it's a very full little loop. I'm leaving it flat because I want to make sure that everything is turned the right way, especially with this. So you can't really see real close, but I'm closing this and just making sure that that is nice and snug. So that's all of our strands together on that eye pin. Okay. The other one I'll show you a little bit closer, just because I will have had everything in position. So going ahead and opening this eye pin, and doing the same thing, starting with my lower one, my middle one. I don't want my spider to keep trying to twist. Okay. And then just closing that eye pin. I just rotated it because I'm right-handed. I opened it on that side. Okay, so now we've got all 3 strands suspended by these eye pins, and you can see the spider is trying to go flat. So he might, when being worn, just need to be like checked to make sure he's flipped the right way, because he's being a stubborn guy. You shouldn't be able to see him. It should be like a flat line. But I think that's also the balance of the link itself. So it looks nice as this. All right. So then I'm going to finish this link by dropping my bead cap down here. So it's going to rest like this over those strands, and they do all fit. And it's not cluttered or close. So we've got our bead caps on. And then I'm going to turn this pin into a link by making a small decorative link out of it. So I want to bring in these bead caps again with the ice obsidian. So that we make a link here, and this is what is going to attach to our chain that's going to finish the necklace. The question is, do I want to add anything else there? I know that I want this, but I kind of feel like this is too close. Maybe I do need to add in maybe one of these crystals. Maybe we do a section with that, just so that there's a little bit. It felt like 2 big chunky things right next to each other. It was 2 big chunky things right next to each other. So is that enough of a link? This is where again I'm playing. I'm seeing what I like. Maybe the opposite. I feel like there needs to be something. I'm not sure if the orange beads is what I'm needing there, or if I want one of each or 2 of the same. I think that this orange looks better for that position because of how it's used along with it elsewhere. But I could also top it with one of these rondelles. Or I could, something that is not yet included in this, just to give it a little bit of space, there were these lantern spacers. I want to see what that looks like. If I leave the orange out of it and just do my chunky boy, is that enough to get that space without making it feel like this big awkward stick in the middle of the necklace? Because I don't want it to be a big awkward stick either. It is a link, but it doesn't need to be a big link. That one does not have a clear hole. I like that better. Yeah, the orange was trying to do too much. It needed something for some space, and I think that's what it needs. But I did not put that bead cap through the right hole. Make sure when you're using filigree bead caps that you go through the correct hole, or it's going to look weird. Because mine just looked weird. I'm glad I noticed it before I made my link. If I needed to, I could redo it, but this way I don't have to. Okay, so I'm going to make a link here. So I'm going to take this, and I'm holding it because I want this snug. I can't really hold it at the bottom, but I'm holding this as snugly as I can and bending that over so that I know that this is a stainless steel eye pin, so it is very easy to, it is strong enough to just do a simple loop here to hold all those guys. And then taking my round nose pliers, we'll also use them later for earrings, but just pinching that between the jaws of my round nose pliers and rotating it towards me until the metal comes back to meet itself. Okay. By bending it over, that made it so that I would end up with a straight loop. So now when that is attached to the chain, making sure that that's closed just a little bit more because I had a small gap. When it's attached to that chain, then this is all snug and I'm not going to lose like the tension with that. Okay, so now I'm going to do the same treatment now that I figured out what I'm doing on the other side. Okay, yeah. Yep. This is so good. This is exactly what I needed to do. And this one doesn't have, like I said, this one didn't have a clear hole. Yeah, there's a little bit of metal that is not happy. So just getting another one out of my box. These were the spacers that came with the spider. Put it on too soon. This is where I'm putting on my bead cap, ice obsidian, and another bead cap. And then that spacer. Just making sure I've got everything correct. And then doing the same thing, pulling it tight and bending the wire over. If I'd use pliers to do that, it would be a little bit sharper bend. I did not, so it is not. All right. And then again, using my memory wire cutters to cut this because it's stainless steel. That's also what I used to cut my chain. Cutting it down to about 1 centimeter so that I can make my loop. Just the same as I did before, pinch it, roll it, and make sure that it is snug right up against itself. My loops are slightly different sizes, but I don't think it's going to be a major deal. Okay. Yay! I'm excited about this. Okay. So before I add on fiddly bits like the chain to finish it, I think I do need to experiment with, I'm just going to drape these and see if I like the way it looks. So the idea would be to kind of just crisscross some of these chains from like one kind of narrow section, possibly like here where it links to here over to this, and they would be done by jump ring, so they would drape a little bit like this. So maybe, and they don't even have to be symmetrical. I'm just getting an idea if this is something that I want to do. Do I want to have one go like this and like this? That spider's getting all the attention. So again, these would not be structural, but they would just kind of drape between things. Or is it just weird? I don't know that I would do it there. I did consider doing one here. So there'd be one that attaches on the other side of the obsidian and down. And like I said, I would make sure that they would drape wherever I attach them. I think that's a better fit for that. So I'm looking in the viewfinder. I think that just looks messy. I mean, it's messy because it's not actually attached to anything yet, but I think it's too much chaos, and I think it takes away from the pretty strands that I made. It's an interesting idea, but I don't think that I would like it in actuality. This looks cleaner, and you can see everything a little bit better. So I'm going to skip the chain idea. I'm not going to worry about trying to make that look like a web. If you would have gone ahead with it, I would love to see what you do with it. If this idea sparked something creatively in you, even though I'm passing on it, and you decide to do it and you do it in a different way, I want to see it. So make sure that you post it in our community or one of the Facebook groups that you know I'm a part of. Tag me, like if this is a Bead Box Bargains, and if you're in that group, then you can post it there and tag me so that I make sure I see it. There's a lot of content there sometimes, so I don't always see everything, but if that idea I had that I've decided to pass on sparks something in you, show me, because I want to see it. I want to see how it can work, because right now my brain is not liking the idea I came up with, just like it didn't like the idea that I had before about the exposed beading wire trying to look like a web. When I tried to put it together, even though it was a cute idea, it was just a failure. So show me your ideas, please. Okay, so our next bit is figuring out how long, what length I want this on me. And with the 3 strands, I want to try it around my neck. So I'm attaching the chain on one side directly to that length that I made. It works as a plier, but these work better as a plier. It's a good second plier, that magical crimper. Again, make sure that's nice and secure so that your chain doesn't slip through. And then I'm going to figure out where I want this to sit on me and how much chain I need to reach that point. Go. Reminding myself that hair does take up space. Lift my hair out of the way so that this is going to be a little bit longer necklace than I usually wear, but of course it would be with 3 strands. So I think that where I want it to rest is here, which means this much chain. But I'm also going to be doing a clasp, and I think for this, I don't really have a fancy idea for a clasp. I'm probably going to do a jump ring and a lobster claw. So it's going to be one of these guys and a jump ring that is about like this size for being a target on the other end of that. So I'm going to want it here is my finished length. So I'm shortening it by as much as that clasp will take, because I'll have a small jump ring attaching that claw as well. So this is actually where I want to cut it. Move the rest of this chain away. We'll use that elsewhere. And then I'm going to attach this chain to the other side. And then I'll cut the chain in half and attach my lobster claw and jump ring. That's how I will do this. And I did not measure, I don't know how long this is total. Let's see if we can get an estimate. So based on the smaller of the strands, if we pinch it together, about an 18-inch necklace. That's just about 9, and it's still curved a little bit. So it's about an 18-inch necklace. And then, of course, drapes farther because of the additional strands in the pendant. But in case you were curious what length this got me, that's what it is. All right, getting another little snip in here. And then we have some earrings, but I already have some ideas on the earrings, so they should be pretty easy. It's going to be, I'll be using some eye pins and a dangle to attach to that, so they're not going to be totally crazy. I'm going to work in these glow-in-the-dark beads again. And oh, I need to get a small, oh, I already have the small jump rings. I got some small jump rings out because I was thinking about doing that chain thing, and that's how I was going to attach them. But since I opted not to do that, and I'm glad I laid them out like that so I could get an idea if it would feel too busy. And for me, it felt too busy. This necklace already has a lot going on. Okay, so this is the right side of the necklace, and I am right-handed, so this is where my lobster claw is going to go. Get the chain on there. Sometimes attaching the chain to a jump ring is one of the hardest things, but it's fine. Everything's fine. Actually, I should check that jump ring before I attach it. Or not the jump ring, lobster claw. Okay, yep. I've never had one that I've attached and then it doesn't open or doesn't work, but Becky has, and so she always she always checks now. Oops. Just trying to make sure I've got enough room to get that claw on. There it is. And then get that closed again. See what I mean about how the pliers do make a good second. Or the crimper makes a good second plier. And then this larger jump ring is just going to pop directly on to the end of that chain and then close it, and it will be done. And then we're going to make some earrings. We're going to make some earrings with some little spidery dangles. They're really cute. They look like little jumping spiders, but they're sparkly. I think that's one of the things I like about this is how sparkly everything is. Okay. In fact, one of the ideas I'm playing with for the earrings includes more sparkle. Okay, so this is the necklace, guys. I'm really pretty happy with how this turned out. I think that's really nice. And the way this fits is this right here hits just below my collarbone, and then it drapes down here. So it has that fit and feel to it. I'm very pleased. I'm very pleased. Okay, setting this aside so we have a little bit more room and less focus issues while we're working on our earrings. These are the things I set aside to play with for earrings. So more of those fun, actually the last of those fun bead caps. I need more of them. And then we've got our little spiders, our little CZ spiders. So freaking cute. I don't know if he shows better on the dish or not. A little bit. But we've also got these guys, and they're so sparkly. I thought they would be fun to bring in on this. I don't know for sure if I'm going to use them, but I thought that they'd be fun. I do have, there's a total of 6, and I only got 2 out because I think that this is going to take up a lot of space because this is a large. The thing is, these add space but not weight. The lampwork bead on its own is a decent weight. So you don't want to add a whole lot of heavy things to it. So unlike adding other stones, these little sparkly guys give me more space. The question is whether or not I want 2 on each one. and then with our little guy dangling. Or does that look too busy? That might look too busy. Because I love those guys and I can use them elsewhere if I need to. What if I do one of these little ones, because they're not heavy like a gemstone. They're also not that big. But it's less blocky. I think the other might look a little bit blocky, and I don't want that. So then we've got, this is feeling better to me already. That's feeling better to me already. Does it need anything else with it? Does it need this? Or does it need maybe just a little touch of this? I'm looking at the two sides of it. I'm not going to put this actually all together. I'm thinking this, like, look at that with the amethyst versus having a bigger, chunkier thing. So instead of starting with that, maybe we do one of these. Again, we're just playing. And this is a long video. I hope that you enjoyed hanging out with me. I hope that you did hang out with me. Sometimes you just need to take a little bit more time. This with our little guy. Yeah, I like getting the purple in there. I do. I like getting the purple in there. So our glow-in-the-dark bead is the star of that. Obviously, these guys are going to be part of something else some other time. But yeah, I like this link, and I need to make sure that I am doing perpendicular loops when I'm doing this, because my ear wire is going to attach. This loop needs to be curled this way to attach correctly to my ear wire, but this one, it needs to be straight down, like it looks straight, in order to attach to my dangle. So these do need to be perpendicular loops. So I'm going to go ahead and hold this bottom, bend over the top so that it's going the opposite direction, trim it up as we did before. And then get this loop curled in on itself. And I did cut this one a little bit shorter than I did earlier with the other ones. For earrings, I really like to have a small loop. And then to make sure that this is actually perpendicular, I'm taking one loop in one set of pliers and the other loop in the other set of pliers, and making sure that it lines up at a right angle. And it didn't quite, but now it does. I'm also giving them a little squish, and they harden up a little bit. So then I'm going to open one end. They're the same, so it doesn't really matter. Feels very tight. Okay. So I'm opening up one end, and I'm putting my spider on so that the front of the spider, where the CZ is towards the whole side of that loop, not where the opening is. So the opening is at the back of the spider. Okay. And then I'm opening the other loop. Yep. Opening the other loop and making sure So this is the back of the spider. So I want this to be the back of the earring. So the hook this direction. It's fun. It's fun. It's such a big bead for such a small dangle, but that's okay. The spider is supposed to be just this fun little thing. Just a fun little thing. Okay. All right. I'm going to make the other one. And I'm going to grab a couple more of these amethysts that are purpley. Because like I said, I want it to show as purple. Not the other, which are pretty. Nope, those first two are closer. All the other, like the grays and the clear and the darker ones, they're all pretty. They're just not what I'm looking for this. I want the purple to show up and not be lost. One more of these. Yeah, that's not too heavy. What are you doing? Where's your hole? Okay, this one is a little bit different shape. Why are you being weird? Okay, grabbing a different amethyst. I don't need to fight it. Okay, I had 3 amethysts that fit no problem on this pin, and now suddenly I'm having a hard time fitting. Like they're not quite. Okay. I pushed it. You generally don't want to do that with gemstones, but it was fine. It didn't crack. It didn't break. There was no crunch. Everything is looking good. So again, with the, I need this perpendicular. So I will straighten it out afterwards because it kind of always rotates a little bit in my fingers when I do that. But as close to perpendicular to start with is better because there's less of the wire being manipulated. So get this other one done. And then we'll put it all together and have our last look. Okay, get the pliers. Yeah, they ended up going almost parallel. So this is why I check, because when I was manipulating, it went parallel instead of perpendicular. But now it's perpendicular because that's how I need that link to be. Okay. And then do much what we did before. Swing it open, get my spider on so that the sparkly side is towards the whole side instead of where it opens, the whole wire. Make sure it's nice and closed. And then open this guy and make sure that the front of my earring, in this case this direction, is the same as the front of my spider. Because there is a wrong side and a right side to those spiders because of his sparkles. Okay, let's move a few things off my mat. My amethyst that encroached the chain I didn't need. I might use those sections of chain for another project. and leave them as those sections for now. Okay, so let's take a look at this. I hope that you had fun hanging around while I made this. This idea has definitely taken a few different turns as I figured out what I wanted and what I liked. But I like this. I like the way that turned out. Let me get it centered and where you can see the whole necklace all the way down to the bottom of that pendant. So we've got our lower, middle, and upper strand, and with our spider right in the middle of his web. And then we've got our sweet little spider earrings. Well, chunky earrings, little spiders. But I feel like these are size appropriate for the necklace. And they'll be fun and glow in the dark. So I've made a few really playful, fun Halloween patterns. This is my spooky one that's a little bit more classed up, has a little bit more sparkle to it. And I'm really enjoying it. I think it's a lot of fun. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you liked this video, hit like. If you want to see more, subscribe. Check the description for links to Bead Box Bargains, where I got these bundles, and the last I looked, at least the strand bundle was still available, as well as a link to the subscription. If you're not a member of the Bargain Bead Box and want to sign up, if you get the Bargain Bead Box with your shipment, they'll send you a coupon code that gives you 30% off at the Bead Box Bargains store. So it is definitely worth doing. It's a great subscription that doesn't cost a whole lot of money, but gives you a lot of great things. The only thing I used from the subscription box was the chain, but that's because I've got plans. I've got plans of more things to make next week. Watch for that. But in the meantime, I hope that you enjoyed this little spoodery adventure. And as always, happy beading, and don't forget to play. Bye, friends.